And talking about all the different business leaders and all the businesses of York County, one thing that kept on coming back in my head is we looked at a lot of the males in society that have done significant things that have given back to society or have contributed in the roles in business. But it hit me that we really didn't really incorporate many of the females. And in the second trimester of this year, my local history classes contributed to creating a book about York County's female heroes. Many of them are business leaders, and they're completely significant, completely strong, and great leaders within our society. And these are included within this book. There are many other ones too, so I want to go through a number of them here today. Now, our objective is to determine how York County's female heroes have contributed and continue to contribute to our rich history. So we'll start off first. Dill Gamble. She was a helper within World War One. As you can see here, she headed up the food production committee, where she tried to help have people create victory gardens. She also organized a Girl Scouts program during World War One. But the biggest thing for Dill Gamble is she was York County's leading suffragette. She's the person that went door to door and organized different females and tried to convince a lot of males in society that females should have the right to vote. And she attended different things in Washington, D.C., as far as the suffragette committees. And she was a leading voice within Pennsylvania to try to get females the right to vote until it was finally achieved in 1920. Okay, our second is Delma Rivera. She came here with her husband, Edwin, in 1962, and she realized that York County was not really ready for any kind of Spanish population, any kind of Spanish speakers. She realized the schools were not in any way capable of handling Spanish speakers, and they didn't have any kind of bilingual teachers. And so she wanted to do whatever's possible to try to make sure that these young students going to the different York high schools and any York school were going to be assisted in every single possible way. And so she created the York Spanish Council in 1972, and she would get different tutors and different people to try to help these students and make sure that they're acclimated as best as possible to the school environment. She also worked for the United Way. She also was on the board of the Salvation Army, but she did so many different things. And she even went to the White House. She met the president. She was on all sorts of different Hispanic boards to try to make sure the Hispanic population was as accepted and included and had the best possible surroundings in York County and in our nation as it possibly could. And so she was a hero within the Spanish community within York. Now, her daughter, Delma Rivera Lytle, is now a state congressperson, and she's trying to do the same things from following her mother's footsteps. And so she's now representing the Spanish-speaking community here for us today in York today. So it's a great family and a great group of people that try to do their best to make sure that not just Spanish speakers, but everybody is included. Everybody is loved and appreciated within the York community. Our next one here is Margaret Mal. And Margaret Mal was working as a teacher with students that had cerebral palsy. And she realized in all of her work that we're missing something in our society. We're missing a nursing home for people that have these special needs, especially cerebral palsy. And so she, with other Yorkers, raised $1 million to construct a nursing home for these people with special needs. So they opened it in 1982, and then also it held 52 residents at that time. And then when she passed away, it was actually added to with 30 additional rooms. But it is a beautiful place, a wonderful place for people that really need that assistance. But it was her dream to say, hey, let's get together and serve these people with special needs and make sure that their needs are met. So wonderful, wonderful person that dedicated herself to something that's very worthwhile. Kathryn Meyer was a Red Line resident back in the time period when Red Line was really booming with cigars. Now, for her, she and her husband John had built a log house right basically in the square of Red Line. And with that, they created a general store, saloon, a post office, a railroad station, and she also created the Red Line Hotel. But altogether, she was known as the mother of Red Line, had all sorts of businesses, but she basically ran things in Red Line back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But Kathryn Meyer, the mother of Red Line. Kathryn Beecher was a candy maker. She would make buttermints, and she learned how to make buttermints in North Carolina. And in 1930, she moved to York and she launched her buttermint company. And in the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s, it was booming like crazy, and she was running a $300,000 business. Now, what's important about that is that back in the 1930s, you didn't have many female business people. Kathryn Beecher was a trailblazer, given the fact that she was a female business person of that era of the early 1900s. Caroline Summers is another female business person, and she didn't really want to be in business that much. She just wanted to be really in support of her husband, but her husband passed away very early. And so Caroline took over the Summers Canning Company, her husband's canning company, and she actually took it to extremely high heights. She produced peas, green beans, tomatoes, corn, all sorts of different vegetables. And eventually, when her sons came back from the military, they took over the company. But then actually they decided shortly after that, in the 1970s, they were going to sell the company. They sold it to Hanover Foods, which is one of the biggest canning companies in the entire nation today. But Caroline was a tremendous business person from 1947 to 1967. And she also helped to give money to found the New Freedom Library. Florence Mehta-Guype, Dr. Florence Mehta-Guype, was a nurse and a nurse anesthetist. And in all of her experience within York Hospital, and as also within Detroit's hospital, she realized that nursing programs were completely inadequate. So she went back to the drawing board. She decided to craft nursing programs to make sure that nurses were ready to roll as soon as they stepped into a hospital, as soon as they stepped into whatever ward they were going to. And so she worked extremely hard and diligently to make sure that those nurses got the education they deserve when they're at nursing school. So some of the practices that she employed at her hospitals started to be employed throughout the entire nation. But she was an absolute pioneer and trailblazer for nursing throughout the entire country, not just in this area. Susan Burns is somebody whose name you've probably heard before, but she was also a nurse, and she's a county commissioner, where she was a county commissioner. And she decided in 1988, after working in nursing and having a very stable job, that she didn't believe necessarily in what she was doing as much as she could possibly affect people in other ways. She wanted to affect you as a young person. And so she quit her job as a nurse and organized with other York Countyans to try to create a program for young kids to learn about how to live healthy lives. She realized the only way to try to keep people from death way too early in their life is to try to affect them early and try to get them to develop good habits early in life. And so she teamed up with other Yorkers and launched the Susan Burns Health Education Center, which you've probably gone to before. But she risked everything. She had a nice, stable nursing job, and she gave it up for you and for my kids and for young people everywhere throughout the entire county of York. Now, going back to a couple business people here. Roxana Gapster, I always mess that one up. She is the president and CEO of a tremendously big company, and that is WellSpan. WellSpan controls York Hospital, but almost every single medical facility you see within York County has the WellSpan name outside of like the OSS company. And Roxana, she's not a Yorker at heart, but she has been running WellSpan for many, many years, and she's dedicated to the people of York, but she leads a tremendously amazing company within York. Another big medical person here and a CEO and president of another medical company, and this one is in direct competition with WellSpan, is the Memorial Hospital, or UPMC, president here, Sally Dixon. Sally Dixon was a Yorker. She didn't really necessarily want to be in the medical field, but she ended up being involved in finance. And then an opportunity came at Memorial Hospital, and she applied and eventually got that position to lead Memorial Hospital, or now UPMC, which built the new hospital in North York. But she is the CEO and president of that hospital, and she dedicates herself to trying to give the best care possible to our York County citizens. Our last one here, Jane Alexander. This lady, she's a treasure. She's something else. She has been practicing law in York. She's been a lawyer in York for over 50 years, and she doesn't want to quit anytime soon. And she's not getting any younger, but She's been practicing law for over 50 years, but at the same time, she doesn't just do that. She also runs two companies. She's the president and owner of JJ Agri-Products. She's a farm girl, and that is an agricultural farm company. She's also the vice president of Mesco, another farming company, and she just does it all. It's amazing to see. And it's this lady. She was born on a farm. She is a nature lover. She never saw herself really going to college, but she decided to take a chance and go to Dickinson College, and she's lived an extraordinary life. She's also been a congressperson, a state legislator in Harrisburg, serving York County. But Jane Alexander served government, has been a lawyer for over 50 years, has and runs two different businesses, but not a spring chicken. But my goodness, does she have a lot of energy? Just do a lot of great things for a lot of people in York and the area. So to finish today's lesson, you're going to play the quizzes game. It's going to go back to yesterday's businesses as well as the females that are absolute heroes within York County, making great contributions in York County's past and also present. All right, have a good one.